Okay, good morning, everyone, again. Welcome to CULand News Brief. This week is 25th week of the year, and we want to take a look at the interest rate first, as usual. Okay, so 30-year fixed rate this week pretty much remains the same, 5.875. And 15-year also remains pretty same, 5.125. And somehow FHA went up a little bit, and 10-year Treasury yield went down a bit, so 3.288. And 5-year ARM went down significantly. I think last week it was kind of abnormal situation. It picked up really high, but went down to 5.75 this week, and 7-year ARM also went down, and it's come down a little bit, 5.75. Okay, so let's take a look at the first news. It's one of the local news. Crescent Schools may be ready to reopen in September. As you know, Crescent, this town, middle school and high school kids are learning remotely since last August. So it's about a year they couldn't come into the classrooms because of the IDA situation at the time. So there's about 1,000 students in middle school and high school, and still they couldn't come back to our classrooms. Office, their space is not ready. And so that's why these parents got upset, and they went to Trenton to try to get the governor's office to speed up the return of the students, because it becomes impatient, because about a year the students, 1,000 students cannot come to the school, and they are learning remotely. So, and now I think they got some improvement. The school district reported that all new lockers have been installed, and about 80% of painting and piping work done in general. But electrical work still done about 30 to 40% only. And all doors and furniture for high school and middle schools are expected to arrive and be installed by mid-July. So hopefully these thousands of students can go back to their classroom. 그 크레스킬 학교는 여러분들 다 아시지만은 그 아이다 홍수 때 물난리가 나가지고 적어도 몇 피트 정도 물이 전부 차가지고 하여튼 전체 학교가 침수되는 바람에 계속 아직도 1년이 가까이 돼 가는데 아직도 학생들이 클래스룸으로 돌아가지 못해서 계속 이렇게 리모트리 온라인으로 계속 공부를 하고 있었고, 굉장히 이제 부모들이 업셋이 돼서 그 트렌턴까지 가서 데모를 막 하고 그랬던 것 같아요. 이제 이게 정부의 지원금 뭐 이렇게 그걸 이용해서 하다 보니까 그 비딩 프로세스를 또 거쳐야 되잖아요. 거쳐서 이제 돈을 세이브하는 이런 방법을 해야 되기 때문에 굉장히 시간이 많이 걸리는데, 그거를 그 빨리 해라 이렇게 이제 데모도 하고 그랬던 모양이에요. 아무튼 지금 아마 9월 달 되면 학생들이 학교로 클래스룸으로 돌아갈 수 있지 않겠는가, 그렇게 지금 보고가 되고 있고요. 그래서 오디토리움을 먼저 끝내고 만약에 클래스룸이 준비가 안 되면 그 오디토리움 강당에서 클래스룸식으로 하고 체육 시간에는 이제 뭐 밖에서 한다든지 이런 방법으로 지금 연구를 하고 있다. 그런 보도가 지금 들어와 있었고요. Okay, next news is, it's again a Manhattan local news. Rents will jump at least 3.25% for 2 million New Yorkers. They are talking about rent-controlled and rent-stabilized units. And collectively, we call the rent-stabilized units. And there is this organization, Rent Guide Board. They voted 5-4 to raise rents on one-year lease by 3.25% and two-year lease 5%. So they allowed. The problem is the soaring inflation has hit the tenants and property owners as well. And also the landlord's ability to maintain buildings was become very difficult. One of the major factors on landlords that the landlord considered, the board considered. And but the board also intensified the concerns about the shortage of affordable housing and sustainability of the city's recovery. The problem is this: it goes the same inflation effect goes to tenant and the landlord as well. Now, who's winning in this game? Well, at least this board, a Rent Guide Board, approved 3.25% rent increase for one-year lease and two-year 5%. Now, in terms of, in general, a rent market in Manhattan, whether this has any significance or not, well, it's interesting. If rent-controlled units, if rent stabilized unit rent goes up, also it'll create impact to the unregulated market as well. Well, last week we saw the rent Manhattan unregulated the fair market rent up to $4,000 a median rent. We got the report. So this is a kind of a related news. And the median income for people living in rent-stabilized homes is about $47,000 compared to unregulated homes. The median income is $62,000, about $63,000. But the real problem is this: a separate analysis of property records released last week by the group JustFix.nyc, the technology company that tracks property ownership. They got a very interesting statistics. That data suggests that more than 60% of rent-stabilized homes are owned by landlords with a portfolio of more than 1,000 units overall. In other words, this landlord is not they don't have just one unit or two unit or a few units. This landlord, okay, they have a portfolio of let's say more than 1,000 units. So they are rich people, in other words. They are keeping this rent stabilized buildings, okay, and they are occupying the 60% of rent of all these controlled units. And about 1% of rent stabilized units are owned by landlords that own fewer than 10 units. So it's a question whether this rich landlord has really problem because of this inflation, or it just excuse to increase the rent. Another aspect is, in this rent stabilized unit, if a landlord can raise the rent, some tenants might get out of the building because they cannot afford. Once the tenant moved out voluntarily, what's happening? The landlord does not have to keep this this unit as a rent stabilized unit anymore, because the tenant left. Now it becomes it goes into fair market situation. 지금 뉴욕의 렌트 가이드 보드라고 있죠. 그 사람들이 이제 1년에 인크리즈 할 수 있는 렌트 인크리즈를 조절하는데 1년짜리 리즈는 3.25% 올릴 수 있다. 2년짜리 리즈는 5% 올릴 수 있다. 근데 이 숫자가 왜 중요하냐 하면 일반 마켓에서도 이 사람들의 그 렌트 인크리즈 하는 거에 따라서 일반 마켓도 프레셔를 받는다. 렌트를 이제 올리는 쪽으로. 근데 리얼 프로블럼은 항상 늘 이게 이제 얼마로 올리는가 중심이 되죠. 그래서 뭐 지금 여기 통계도 나와 있는데 이런 유닛에 사는 분들은 미디언 인컴이 한 47,000불이다. 그렇지 않은 경우는 한 63,000불 정도 미디언 인컴이 된다. 뭐 그런 거는 상상이 가는데요. 지금 그 리얼 시츄에이션은 또 이런 보고가 있어요. 사실은 이 랜로드들이 어려워서 그렇게 올려준다라고 하는 이유가 있지만 사실 이 랜로드들이 여기 좀 나와 있죠. 60% 이상이 랜로드들이 한 뭐 1,000개 유닛을 가지고 있는 그런 랜로드들이기 때문에 과연 이것이 그 이유가 되겠는가 하는 이제 분석도 있는 거고요. 그리고 10개 이하로 가지고 있는 사람들은 1%밖에 안 된다. 이런 통계가 나와 있어서 재미있는 현상이고 이것을 우리가 주시하는 이유는 일반 마켓에도 영향을 주기 때문에 어떻게 움직이느냐에 따라서 뉴욕 타임즈에 오늘 보도가 들어왔었습니다. Next news is home equity hits record to $27.8 trillion. So a lot of money gained actually if you own the house and if you own investment properties. American has more equity in their homes than ever before. The total U.S. home equity increased almost 20% in the first quarter to $27.8 trillion, according to the Fed. And of course, this is because the red hot housing market and double-digit price gains, of course, have driven some would-be home buyers out of the market. They cannot buy the home. But at the same time, rising home values are boosting the finances of Americans who already owned houses, okay? House or houses, multiple houses for the investment purpose. About 60% of equity was withdrawn via cash out refinances in 2021. A lot of people withdraw money by refinancing. So they get the cash and then I guess they're going to spend. Homeowners are likely to turn to home equity loan lines of credit. If it's not cash out by refinancing, that they mostly open up the home equity lines, credit line, the line of credit. And this company, Black Knights, they're tracking the statistics related to equity. And the equity gains expected to spark a record amount of home improvement spending this year, according to CoreLogic Inc. Well, increasing equity means you cash out more or you open up more line of credit. That means it will trigger more spending on home improvement. That's what the CoreLogic forecasted. 지금 미국의 피노미나 참 엄청난 현상이 벌어지고 있는데 뭐죠? 그게 에쿼티가 홈 에쿼티가 지금 늘어나고 있다. 그래서 지금 퍼스트 쿼터에 한 20%가 늘어나서 $27.8 trillion 에쿼티가 지금 형성되고 있다. 그래서 그 에쿼티가 많다는 얘기는 집을 소유한 사람들은 그렇죠. already own them. 아니면 지금 제일 아마도 에쿼티 증가로 베네핏을 보신 분들은 그 투자를 많이 가지고 있는 분들, 하우스, 레지던셜 투자를 많이 가지고 계신 분들은 집값이 이렇게 올라갔으니까 에쿼티 상승이 굉장히 지금 많을 거다. 그리고 그래서 이렇게 돈이 또 많이 도는지도 모르겠어요. 2021년도에 거의 그 60% 에쿼티가 리파이낸스해서 캐시아웃이 됐다. 뭐 이런 지금 통계가 나와 있고요. 그리고 한 가지 그 콜라직에서 포캐스트 한 거는 그래서 홈에쿼티가 올라가기 때문에 그것을 이제 캐시로 뽑거나 아니면 라인 오브 크레딧을 뽑아서 홈 임프루먼트가 상당히 올해는 증가할 거다. 그렇게 예상을 지금 하고 있다. The next news is the U.S. median price went over $400,000. According to NAR, the median price hit $407,600 in May, which is up 14.8% from a year ago. And this is the highest since 1999. That year, NAR started collecting the data. But sales of existing homes reached to only 5.41 million, down 3.4% from last month and down 8.6% from a year ago. So number of sales declined. And Lawrence Yun, chief economist at NAR, said the decline of home sales will continue for a few more months. So we see what we can expect in the market. 지금 US median price가 드디어 40만 불을 넘어서 47만 600불이 되었다. 5월달 통계고요. 1년 전 대비 14.8% 올라갔고, 그러나 세일즈 자체는 줄어들었다. 전월 대비 3.4% 줄었고 1년 전 대비 8.6%가 줄었다. 로렌스 연 얘기는 앞으로도 이 홈 세일 디클라인은 number of transaction은 몇 달 더 감소세에 있겠다. 그렇게 지금 보고 있다고 우리 한국일보 오늘자 들어왔습니다. The next news is economists say recession is likely. 그러니까 more like we will have recession. That's what most economists are saying. Well, the economists, they raised the probability of a recession. Now they're saying 44%. In the next 12 months, recession in the next 12 months, the probability is 44%. Now, it was 18% in January and 28% in April. So now in June, they raised the probability of recession in next 12 months to 44%. We can see interesting chart here. This probability in the US is in recession in next 12 months, including today. Now, let's take a look at here. They measured this probability. Right now it's a 44%, right? And it's a 0% to 100%. And in fact, this is actual recession period here. Okay, we know this. There's a financial crisis. At this time, it was, of course, probabilities, of course, 100% because we were in recession. But before that, 20% and 40% and some 70%, it's a forecast probability that economists forecasted. And then we hit the recession. I think that's what they're saying. So probability of economists forecasted during these years, like plus minus 20%. Okay. But now, year 2021, it hits the peak, and I think we went over without recession, but now went down, but now it's climbing up. The probability that economists forecast is 44% by now. And also they reduced GDP. Okay. Originally in April, they forecasted 2.6%, but they adjusted the fourth quarter of 2022. The growth is going to be 1.3%. 지금 경제학자들이 과연 앞으로 11개월 안에 리세션이 올 것인가 안 올 것인가, probability라고 그러는데 그거를 January에는 18%를 받고 April에는 28%를 받는데 지금 June에 와서 44%가 된다고 우리 경제학자들이 지금 내다보고 있는 거다. 그렇게 지금 보고 있어서 지금 월스트리트저널이 어제 보고를 했고요. 그래서 이 차트를 하나 내놨는데 이게 이제 경제학자들이 내다보는 probability를 이렇게 그려봤고 그리고 실적으로 리세션에 우리가 들어갔었죠. 들어갔은 타이밍이 이제 금융위기 이후고요. 그래서 이게 이제 리세션 타임이었고 지금 그 이후에 뭐 리세션 프로바빌리티는 굉장히 낮았어요. 20%, 10% 하다가 우리 이제 코로나 치면서 굉장히 리세션 프로바빌리티 예상한 게 컸었는데 그렇게 이제 문제는 없이 지나갔죠. 다시 지금 내려갔다가 다시 지금 현재 한 44%로 리세션이 앞으로 12개월에 올 것이다라고 보고 있는 그런 지금 상황이다. 그런 보고가 있었고요. The next news is wide range of financial effects from rate hikes. Well, as we know, last Wednesday, Fed raised 75 basis points. So, and this was the largest one-time increase since November 1994. Of course, this move will drive rates higher on everything from credit cards to mortgages. Let's take a look at the anticipated rate hike in 2022. Well, where would be the end of the federal fund rate? Okay. And well, JP Morgan chief economist Michael Feroli forecasted probably July and September, the Fed will raise 50 basis points twice, July 1 and September and one more time. That's kind of a mild forecast, but this guy is a chief North American economist at the Capital Economics. He is more aggressive. He's saying 75 basis points 2 times in a row this year, even in July. And therefore, the Fed funds rate becomes 2.25 to 2.5%. Right now, how much the federal fund rate? Federal fund rate right now is 0.75 to 1%. Okay. And so he said it can be 2.25% to 2.5% in July, but that's not the end. The peak now likely to be near 4%. So he was very aggressive. But on the bright side is consumers, especially seniors and others on fixed incomes, will finally see bank deposit rates. In other words, you deposit money in the bank, right? That interest rate will go up from really paltry levels, very little level, but now it's going up, especially for online savings account and CDs. That's kind of a good side for seniors and others on fixed income people. And what about inflation rate? The Fed now finds itself in a dedicated position. It must raise rate to cool spending and inflation without tipping the economy into recession. But economists increasingly believe recession will be unavoidable as inflation squeezes households and now higher rates will too. So it's a tough battle. Rising rates, other effects. Well, also credit line is going to be, and also adjustable rate mortgages. Interest will go up because it's adjustable, and home equity lines of credit, also interest rate going up. So these 3 areas is a direct impact because that's because they are tied to the prime rate. In other words, the federal fund rate usually plus 3% becomes prime rate, okay, typically. So, and this credit cards and adjustable rate mortgages and home equity line interest rate tied to prime rate. So prime rate goes up, these rates goes up too. And so home buying has become more difficult for many in the market. But the silver lining, everything has silver lining. Some good aspect is that it should cool demand for homes. Is it true? It is going to cool down for home buyers' demand? Well, we'll see. The slowing down torrid price growth and providing buyers more options and some relief from bidding wars. Well, yes, I agree somewhat, but still we are not completely out of bidding wars. In the markets, the northern New Jersey market, we see still really bloody bidding war still, but in overall, that rates hike might cool down a buyer's demand. And what about Fed's effect on auto loans? This report says, Wall Street Journal, I believe, record, okay. The record saying auto loans will very minimally impacted because the effect of a quarter point increase in rates on a 25,000 loan is just a few dollars. So auto loan may not to be concerned. And the Fed's effect on savings interest rate, I think we touched a little bit. Fed rates rise, banks will be able to charge a little more for loans, giving them more profit margin to pay a higher rate on customer deposits. Well, how much that will be, we don't know. That's it for news brief this week. 그 Fed가 올라가면, Fed rate이 올라가면 지금 어떤 JP 모건 같은 경우는 뭐 moderate forecast, 아마 0.5씩 2번 올릴 것 같다. 그런 얘기를 하고 있는데, 이 또 폴 애쉬워스 같은 사람은 그게 아니라 0.75%씩 지금 2번 올릴 거다. 뭐 이런 얘기를 하고 있어서 Fed rate이 worst case, Fed fund rate이 우리가 보통 얘기하는 기준금리라고 그러죠. 4%까지도 올라갈 수 있다. 그렇다는 얘기는 프라임은 7%까지도 올라갈 수 있다라고도 보고 있는 사람들도 있다. 뭐 그러나 이제 그 사이드는 그렇게 이자율이 올라가니까 은행에 고정적으로 돈을 넣어놓고 쓰시는 분들은 그 이자가 좀 올라갈 수 있겠다. 세이빙 어카운트나 CD 같은 경우에. 그리고 Fed가 지금 굉장히 힘든 상황에 있다. 지금 블레임을 막 받고 있죠. Fed가 인플레이션 컨트롤이 너무 늦었다. 이런 지금 블레임을 많이 받고 있어서 지금 인플레이션 레이트이 컨트롤이 지금 안 되고 있는 상황이죠. 아무튼 그랬고 그 다음에 이제 directly 임팩트를 받는 거는 크레딧 카드 이자율이 임팩트 받고요. 그러니까 여러분들 크레딧 카드 빚을 빨리 줄이셔야 되고 adjustable rate mortgage도 영향을 다이렉트리 받고 홈에쿼티 론 라인 오브 크레딧도 이자율이 다이렉트리 연동되어 있기 때문에 영향을 받는다. 쭉 이제 아시지만은 일드가 이제 올라가고 그 다음에 이제 기준금리 펀드 레이시 올라가고 그러면 프라임이 또 거기에 연동돼 있고 프라임이 연동돼 있으면 지금 이러한 이자율들이 연동돼 있다. 그러나 또 그 사이드는 지금 여기서 보고 있는 거는 그 집을 살려오는 디맨드가 좀 쿨다운 되지 않겠느냐. 근데 여기서 놓치고 있는 문제는 언급이 안 돼 있는 문제는 그 바이어 마켓이 바이어 디맨드가 쿨다운 되는 거는 가능한데 그러다 보니까 뭐예요? 이 사람들이 어디를 가야 되니까 렌트가 또 계속 올라간다. 그래서 지금 특히 노던 뉴저지 상황은 렌트가 지금 아주 난리가 났다. 이렇게 지금 마켓 상황이 돌아가고 있습니다. 그리고 오토 론은 임팩트를 그렇게 안 준다 그러네요. 오토 론은 우리가 잘 모르지만은 그리고 일반적으로 세이빙 어카운트에 있는 내 돈 디파짓 해놓은 거에 이자가 올라갈 수 있을 것이다. Okay, I think the last news, other tech news. Korea launched a satellite, the civilian satellite Nuri, successfully by its own technology. Congratulations. And Korea becomes the 7th country launched their own civilian satellite in the world. Okay, that's it for today's news brief. And I hope you will have good rest of the week, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.